What is the K-1 visa? The K-1 visa is a temporary visa which allows a U.S. citizen to sponsor their foreign national fiance who's currently abroad. There's a lot of misconceptions with this visa type, so I'm just going to go over a few of those today. The first is that the sponsor really has to be a U.S. citizen. So it means that a green card holder or some other non-immigrant visa holder in the U.S. isn't eligible to sponsor someone for a K-1. The second misconception is that the foreign national has to actually be physically abroad, meaning that if they're in the U.S. as a student or a visitor, you can't do a change of status to a K-1. The K-1s really only make sense if you've got a U.S. citizen here, or I guess they could be abroad, and the foreign national is physically located abroad. The third requirement, which it sounds funny to say it, but this really is confusing. You can't already be married. So it means that you can't be married in the US, but what's confusing is that a marriage anywhere in the world that's legally recognized in the company or in the country where it took place is considered a legal marriage for US purposes. So if you were married in Turkey but not in the US, it's still considered a legal marriage, and the K-1 is not going to be a good option. The exception to that is if you were, you had a religious ceremony or maybe just any kind of ceremony, but it wasn't legally recognized, then it wouldn't be considered a marriage in the US. You can still move forward with the K-1. Another requirement, which is really also confusing, is that the US citizen sponsor and the foreign national had to have physically seen each other in person in the 2 years prior to filing the petition. There's a waiver for this, and what's often confusing is that clients will say, well, it was COVID and it was really extenuating circumstances, and I think because of that we would qualify for the waiver. The truth is, in practice, this waiver is almost never approved. So I strongly discourage trying to meet that requirement. Really what happens is you've gone through months and months of processing times to ultimately get a denial. And it's just so rarely approved, it's not worth it. So you want to make sure that you have physically seen each other in, at least the 2 years prior to filing, at least once in the 2 years prior to filing. Once the K-1 visa is approved, so it starts with a petition that the U.S. citizen is filing, which is just establishing the relationship and their citizenship. And then the foreign national is attending the K-1 interview at their embassy or consulate. And once the K-1 is approved, they're going to come to the U.S., and then you have to marry within the 90 days. This is really essential. So, in a lot of other visa types, you've got some options, meaning you could have come with one intent and then change that intent after you arrived. The K-1 isn't that way, meaning it's super strict and you really have to marry within those 90 days in order to be eligible to continue with the green card process. Once you marry within the 90 days, the U.S. citizen spouse now can then go ahead and sponsor their foreign national spouse for a green card through the adjustment of status process. So the purpose of the K-1 is really to have this couple united as quickly as possible versus going through a green card process, which the processing times are typically a little bit longer. It allows them to get married in the U.S. So often if you've got family or it's easier for people to get to the U.S., it's a great option. And finally, it just allows you to be together while you're going through the green card process. So if you have more questions, you should see information below to give us a call, and we're happy to answer them. Thanks.